Of course. Here's 500 words of your infidelity story script, written directly, emotionally grounded, and without fluff. I used to believe that once you got married, love would take care of itself. You build a life, share a bed, maybe raise kids, and that would be enough. But somewhere between the bills, the silences, and the untouched dinner plates, I started disappearing. My husband wasn't cruel. He was just absent, always busy, always distracted, always tired. There were weeks where the only time he touched me was by accident. When my best friend asked me to babysit her younger brother's little girl, I said yes, without hesitation. I needed the distraction. I didn't even know he had a child. He'd been the hot younger brother we all used to joke about in our 20s, but I hadn't seen him in years. I didn't expect much. I was there for the baby, nothing more. The first time I knocked on his door, he opened it with that kind of quiet warmth people forget to show anymore. His eyes met mine, and for a split second, I saw something unspoken, like he noticed me, not just someone to hand the kid off to. His daughter was already asleep, so we just exchanged pleasantries. His smile felt intentional, not forced, not tired, just kind. I told myself I was overreacting. But when I sat in that living room, alone with soft lullabies playing in the background, something stirred in me. It wasn't about him. It was about the way I felt in that house, calm, seen, like I was part of something again. That feeling had been missing for so long, I almost didn't recognize it. When he got home, he thanked me like I'd done something extraordinary. His voice had a gentleness to it, low, slow, sincere. He asked if I was okay walking home that late. I said yes, of course, I do it all the time. He still offered to walk me to the corner, just in case. I refused, awkwardly, but the way he lingered in the doorway made it hard to turn away. It became a routine after that. I'd come over, he'd leave a note or a little snack for me, sometimes even music queued up on the speakers. Small things. Thoughtful things. One evening, he left a folded blanket on the couch in case I got cold. My husband hadn't asked if I was cold in years. That night, when I wrapped myself in it, I didn't think about guilt. I thought about how long it had been since someone noticed I existed. I started looking forward to those nights more than I should have. I started picking better outfits, fixing my hair differently. Not sexy, just presentable. Alive. I told myself it was nothing. Just babysitting. Just a favor. But the truth was, I was starving for something I couldn't name, and for the first time in years, I was being quietly, tenderly fed. Of course. Here is 500 words of your infidelity story script, continuing the emotional progression directly and with depth. It didn't take long for our conversations to stretch beyond casual updates. He started coming home earlier, just by a few minutes, but enough for us to exchange more than a polite goodbye. We talked about simple things at first. Then, little by little, the conversations deepened. He asked about my life, really asked like he wanted to know more than just what I did for a living. He listened like he had all the time in the world. He noticed things. He complimented my earrings one night, the ones my husband hadn't seen me wear in months. He asked if I'd always been this good with kids. I laughed it off, said I just liked quiet houses and bedtime stories.
He said they suited me.
That I had a softness to me most people overlooked.
I didn't know what to say.
No one had said something that personal to me in years. Another night, it was raining hard. I was soaked by the time I arrived. He opened the door, took one look at me, and immediately offered a towel. Not out of obligation, but with a kind of urgency that felt protective. I dried off in the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and wondered when I had stopped seeing this version of me, the woman who still wanted to be seen, to be known. We sat on the couch that night, him with a glass of wine, me with tea. We talked about regrets. He told me he never thought he'd be a father this young, let alone a single one. I admitted that I sometimes forgot who I was before I got married. He looked at me then, not the polite, neighborly kind of look, but the one that lingers, that sees straight through you. I tried to shift the conversation, but he kept asking questions. I kept answering. There was a moment, quiet, stretched between his words, when he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. It was so small, so innocent, but I felt it everywhere. My breath caught. I didn't move away. He didn't apologize. We both just sat there, suspended in the tension. I went home that night shaken. I told myself nothing had happened. But something had shifted. I started paying attention to the way he looked at me, like I mattered, like he saw more than just a worn-out wife doing a favor. I began feeling guilty, not because anything physical had occurred, but because I looked forward to him more than I looked forward to anything else in my life. It wasn't lust, not yet. It was connection. And that was more dangerous. Lust fades. But feeling understood, feeling wanted for who you are underneath the wear and tear, that was intoxicating. And I was already in too deep to pretend otherwise. Of course. Here is 500 words of your infidelity story script, moving directly into the breaking point with emotional and physical intensity. It was supposed to be a quick favor. Just one more night. The storm outside was loud, relentless. He texted asking if I was sure I still wanted to come. I said yes, without thinking. Something in me needed him. When I got there, he looked surprised, grateful, maybe even relieved. The girl was already asleep, and the house felt different. Warmer, quieter, like it was waiting for something to happen. He stayed a few minutes longer this time. Made coffee. We sat at the kitchen counter, just talking, pretending like it was still casual. But it wasn't. Every word we said felt closer than the last. He asked about my husband, about whether I was happy. I gave him silence. Then I told the truth, not with bitterness, just exhaustion. I said I felt like a ghost in my own life. He didn't try to fix it. He just looked at me like he understood. He said he used to believe people settled because it was easier than being alone. But now he wasn't so sure. Alone, at least, you knew where you stood. He said, I deserve more. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, like it was obvious. That sentence sat between us for a long time. When the thunder cracked, I flinched. He reached across the counter, touched my hand. I didn't pull away. His thumb brushed against my skin like it had every right to be there. I looked up, and that's when I knew. This wasn't a maybe. This wasn't a slow drift anymore. It was a fall. He came around the counter. I didn't move. I couldn't. His hand found my face, and his lips met mine. Not fast, not hungry, just certain. Everything else disappeared. There was no husband, no house, no promises. Just touch. Breath. His fingers in my hair. My body responding before my mind could catch up. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. It was desperate and gentle all at once. Like he was trying to erase all the years I'd spent being ignored, like I was trying to remember what it felt like to be chosen. Every part of me felt awake again, like my skin had memory I hadn't tapped in years. After we stayed like that, quiet, tangled, his breath slowing against my shoulder. I should have felt ashamed, but I didn't. I felt like I'd come back to life. I closed my eyes and tried to hold on to it just for a moment longer. Eventually, I dressed.
He didn't ask me to stay.
I didn't expect him to, but as I stood at the door, he touched my wrist and said my name like it mattered. Like I mattered. I nodded, unable to speak. I stepped back into the storm with something heavier than guilt. Something closer to truth. Of course. Here's 500 words of your infidelity story script, focusing on the emotional aftermath, inner conflict, and open-ended reflection. When I got home that night, the house was dark. My husband was asleep on the couch, TV still flickering. I stood in the hallway longer than I should have, watching him, wondering if he'd even notice I'd been gone longer than usual. He didn't stir. I walked past him, heart pounding, carrying something I couldn't set down. The next morning, everything felt surreal. I moved through my routines, made coffee, packed lunches, answered emails. He barely looked at me. If he sensed something was off, he didn't say. Maybe he didn't care. Or maybe he'd stopped noticing a long time ago. I didn't contact him, the one I'd kissed, the one who touched me like I was real. I didn't need to. The silence between us said enough. But something had shifted inside me. I started putting effort into myself again. Clothes that made me feel something. Makeup just enough to remind myself I was still there. I caught glimpses of myself in the mirror and didn't look away. A week passed. I was asked to babysit again. I hesitated before saying yes. Not out of guilt, because I wasn't sure what I wanted. When I arrived, we barely spoke more than necessary. He didn't linger. No soft touches. No long stares.
But there was weight in the quiet.
I felt it when our eyes met. A pause that held everything we weren't saying. He didn't try to repeat that night. I think we both knew it wasn't about that. What happened wasn't just physical. It was a mirror. It showed me everything I'd forgotten I needed. Attention, tenderness, the feeling of being chosen without begging for it. That night didn't break my marriage. It exposed what was already broken. At home, I started noticing all the spaces between us. How little we spoke, how rarely we touched, how easily we moved around each other without connection. I tried bringing it up once, lightly. He shrugged it off. Said I was overthinking, that everything was fine. But it wasn't. I just didn't have the energy to pretend anymore. I didn't leave. Not yet. But I also didn't crawl back into the version of myself that settled. I couldn't. I started journaling again. Walking alone. Finding small pieces of myself that didn't belong to anyone else. And when I looked back on that night, I didn't see a mistake. I saw clarity. I didn't tell anyone. Not my husband. Not my friends. Some things don't need to be shared to be real. I carry that night quietly. Not like a secret. Like a turning point. A line in the sand between who I was and who I'm becoming. Sometimes I wonder if it was just a moment. A one-time thing. Maybe. Or maybe it was the first time in years I felt awake. And even if I never touch him again, I'll never forget what it felt like to be seen, to be wanted, to feel alive in my own skin.